Hello everyone, my name is Ezzy Perez, and today I'll be presenting the humanistic theorist Carl Rogers. Who was Carl Rogers? Carl Ransom Rogers was born in 1902 in Oak Hill, Illinois, and died in 1987. He was the fourth of 6 siblings, a high achiever in school from a very young age. He enrolled at the University of Wisconsin as an agriculture major. But later, he attended a Christian conference in China, which led him to question his career path and resulted in the change of majors to history with the goal of becoming a minister. He got a bachelor's degree in history, but later again changed his career path to psychology due to attending a religious seminar in which he questioned his faith. He also took a psychology course that highly inspired his decision. He decided to enroll in the clinical psychology program at Columbia and earn his doctorate. After receiving his PhD, he was involved in academia for a few years, and during that time, he developed his person-centered therapy approach. He was elected president of the American Psychological Association and wrote 19 books and multiple articles outlining his humanistic theory. The core of Rogers' personality theory is self-actualization. Rogers believed that every individual is motivated by an innate tendency to actualize, which he referred to as self-actualization. It begins in the womb, it helps with human growth, the development of both physiological functioning and body parts, and is responsible for maturation. These genetic changes are part of our genetic makeup and are brought in by the actualization tendency. Despite these changes being genetically determined, the process toward full human development is not automatic or effortless. Roger argued that this process of human development involves struggle and pain. An example of how actualization tendency plays a role in infancy is when children learn how to walk. They will fall many times and hurt themselves, but despite the pain, they will persevere due to their strong tendency to actualize. Another important component to Rogers' theory is the experiential world. According to Rogers, we're exposed to multiple simulations every day. It can be important, threatening, or rewarding. The reality of our environment depends on our perception of it, and it does not always match reality. This can be partly explained by what Rogers calls the organismic valuing process, which involves evaluating life experiences by how they contribute to the actualization tendency. Essentially, an experience is assigned a positive value if it promotes actualization and it's evaluated as good and desirable. On the contrary, it's assigned a negative value if it hinders actualization and it's evaluated as undesirable. This process influences behavior because we prefer to repeat desirable experiences and avoid undesirable ones. However, our perceptions do change over time and circumstances. As the actualization tendency in infancy guides to development, our experiential world expands. This means that infants are exposed to many more stimulations, which they'll react to based on their subjective experiences. So, our experiences become the leader of our judgments and behavior. As infants reach higher growth, their experiential world gets sharper, leading to the development of the self. As infants expand their experiential world due to interactions with others, a part of that experience becomes distinguished from the others. This part is defined by the words I, me, and myself, what Rogers called the self or the self-concept, which involves characterizing oneself from others, objects, and events external to the self. It's also the perception of who we are, who we should be, and who we want to be. The self is a consistent pattern, and all aspects of the self strive for consistency. As the self arises, according to Roger, a need develops, what he called positive regard. The source of this need is unclear, but this need is universal and persistent, and it's mostly seen during infancy. This need includes love, acceptance, and approval from others. Infants enjoy receiving positive regard and find it frustrating when they don't receive it, or it's withdrawn. Therefore, infant behavior is guided by the amount of positive regard In other words, love and affection. Despite infants receiving enough positive regard, some behaviors might be punished. But if positive regard is given regardless of the infant's undesirable behavior, this occurrence is what Rogers calls unconditional positive regard, meaning that love for an infant is given freely and entirely without conditions or dependent on the child's behavior. Over time, positive regard will come from us more than from others. This Rogers refers to as positive self-regard. It's just as strong as positive regard. It can be defined as a feeling of contentment with oneself, and it's associated with positive mental health. How is our personality developed? According to Rogers' theory, actualization tendency plays a huge role in shaping our personality since it's innate. But the process itself is influenced more by social than biological factors. In this case, social aspects are positive regard, positive self-regard, that we receive from others and ourselves. Childhood experiences have some impact on personality development, but experiences later in life have a greater influence on our personality. Can we change our personality? Rogers believed that our personalities could change since it's influenced by the way we perceive our subjective experiences. So to change our personality, we must change our perspective. Rogers created what is now known as person-centered therapy or client-centered therapy, in which the therapist practices empathy and acceptance of the individual, provides unconditional positive regard, aids in changing the person's perspective, especially those thoughts that contribute to maladaptive behaviors and hinder self-actualization. They help individuals find answers within themselves and encourages them to strive for self-actualization. The therapist acts as a facilitator rather than directing the therapy. If an individual receives unconditional positive regard, they're more likely to experience congruency. This means that the self-concept is congruent with the experiences. However, incongruency can occur, which means that an individual denies or distorts their experiences. This is most likely due to what Rogers called conditional positive regard. This means that a parent doesn't give positive regard to every behavior. So children learn that parental love depends on specific acceptable behavior, and they might disapprove of themselves for expressing the unacceptable behaviors. So judgment from others become internalized and personal. Over time, the self-concept comes to function as a parental replacement and thus develops conditions of worth in which children feel worthy in certain conditions that bring positive regard and unworthy in others that don't receive positive regard. So if an individual establishes congruency, they can develop and actualize all aspects of the self and progress towards the goal of becoming a fully functioning person. The characteristics, according to Roger, of a fully functioning person are the following. They live fully and richly in every moment. They trust their own organism. They are free to make choices without constraints or inhibitions. They are creative and live constructively and adaptively as environmental conditions change. They are in a state of self-actualizing, as in a constant process. And they are aware that being fully functioning is not always easy. Now, comparing Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow, both theorists use self-actualization in their humanistic theories. They both looked at people with a positive perspective. They also emphasized the inner qualities of an individual, that individuals have the ability to grow. Despite both using self-actualization in their theories, each used it differently, such as Maslow created a hierarchy of needs in which the lowest need in the pyramid must be met first in order to continue up the hierarchy. Maslow placed self-actualization at the very top and emphasized self-actualization gradually developed over time. Rogers, on the other hand, emphasized that self-actualization is a never-ending process that begins in the womb and continues through the rest of our lives. But it's in our power to intensify this process and become a fully functioning person. Some important contributions that Rogers brought were his person-centered therapy. He emphasized human potential in the form of self-actualization, brought the idea of unconditional positive regard and how it influences our personality, and influenced psychology's theoretical and empirical definitions of the self-concept. And these are my references. Thank you.